Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Zoom call. The primary purpose is to talk about the water proposals that EDF is consulting on at the moment and which we must respond to by this Friday. But we're also going to have a quick update on how the DCO process is going generally. And we will, if we've got time, I'm going to give you an exclusive preview of our new animated video, which we've just taken delivery of this afternoon. So I'm Alison from Stop Sizewell C. I'm joined by Paul, who's the chair of Stop Sizewell C, who will also be speaking, but there are other participants in this call from our organisation and also from Together Against Sizewell C, so there's lots of expertise. And as ever, as this process goes on, I think these Zoom calls are less about us kind of sharing information and kind of giving direction on what you should do, and more about, you know, us all collectively discussing proposals and sharing our you know, the information that we've gathered through our own research and reading, because, you know, it's so enormous, the task that we've got to try and keep on top of everything. So I have this afternoon updated the page on our website which deals with the DCO process. So when you go to our website, which is stopsizewellc.org, there is a menu item called Take Part in the Planning Process, which if you click on, it will include some information about these water proposals that we're going to talk about, and, you know, various deadlines and an update on the DCO timetable. But I think what I'll do is I'll just pass straight to Paul, who can get cracking with the issue of water.
Okay. Are you pinning me, or am I maybe I don't see that?
No, I'm going to pin you, but I can't find you. Here we go. There we are.
Wonderful. Oh, I can see myself in full color. Yeah, okay, so desalination. Well, I'm sure you're all well aware that we've been banging on about the availability of water supplies for this project ever since consultation 1. And I think if you're going to respond, that's something you should certainly include in a response, because despite asking multiple questions of both Suffolk and Water and EDF, it's all been, it's okay, we can manage this. Well, it would appear that they can't manage it. To the point that Northumbrian Water, who's Essex and Suffolk Water owner, came back and actually said that they're submitting a holding objection, which I think really shocked EDF, because I'm sure they've been talking about this quite a lot, but for their partner in crime, if you like, to actually submit a holding objection on the DCO examination really makes EDF have to stand up and actually atone for itself. They are worried about it in 2 ways, because they can't provide any material or any other water probably until 2026. Could be before, but it could be after. So there's a real issue with potable water supply for this. They have to put in 20 odd kilometers of new pipeline and connections and uprates and pumping to be able to get this actually on site. Just as an aside, it's not just potable water that's a problem on site. There's a problem with non-potable water. So they need all of this for sort of dust suppression, cleaning vehicle tires before they come off site, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of reasons they need non-potable water as well. And if you remember, 2 consultations ago, they introduced a reservoir up on the north end of the site near the borrow pits and near a water management zone to actually store non-potable water. And in the same way that they were uncertain as to how they're getting potable water, they're still uncertain as to exactly how they're going to be able to maintain this reservoir. They keep telling us it's going to fill with water which falls out of the sky in the winter months, and that'll do them through the summer. But they also say that they want to find water from elsewhere, including from various poor farmers who have abstraction rights to grow food, and they're going to be able to negotiate their licenses. Well, the reality is I can't see any of the farmers negotiating their licenses because water is at such a premium in this area. They're not going to be able to give that up. It's also interesting that actually EDF or NNB Sizewell C didn't seem to know that actually EDF have their own abstraction license already for Upper Abbey Farm to irrigate all of the crops that they no longer irrigate because they've turned a lot of it into Harrier mitigation. So they're fairly useless at actually understanding what is going on even within their own company. Anyway, to get back to the desalination point, EDF talk about their water supply strategy update in a document called AS202. And they look at all of the ways they might get potable water, some of which were getting them from Essex, from other water management zones in Essex, as well as the various water management zones elsewhere, or water management regions elsewhere. They also considered desalination. And what they actually say in this document, and I'll quote verbatim, this option has been discounted in favor of alternative options due to concerns with power consumption, sustainability, cost, and wastewater discharge. The desalination process is typically energy intensive, and the discharge of brine water as a result of desalination may not be suitable for discharge through the combined drainage outfall. Well, they're not going to put it out through the combined drainage outfall. They've already made that decision. But all of the other caveats and concerns they have haven't gone away. They're still there. And funnily enough, I was speaking onto one of the walkers today about another potential problem. Apparently in Saudi Arabia, they do a lot of desalination, strangely enough. And one of the issues they've been actually found to have is it's encouraged algal blooms along the shoreline because the brine and there's extra phosphorus that goes in to actually clean some of the pipes in the various parts of the desalination plant. So the question is there going to be a problem with algal blooms? Now I need to look up that, and I shall be doing that in the next few days. But apparently there is an academic paper that actually looks at this as an issue. One of the issues that Sizewell C will have is that they're proposing to put the brine back in between the beach and the smaller offshore banks, the smaller ones. This is not the Dunwich Bank and Sizewell Bank. But the question is, the brine being heavier, if it actually then can't mix properly and go out to sea, then they could have a similar problem here. So that's something we need to look into too. So the other concerns are they have to run this from a diesel farm, initially certainly. Whether they will ever get it hooked up to the main supply is questionable. There is some discussion about whether they could hook it up to Sizewell B, but I don't know where that stands. We need to look at that. But the whole issue of the diesel farm, pollution from the diesel farm, the fact that the brine is put back into the ocean, and it's some of the metals that will go out as a result of the concentration. It's like 1.6 times as concentrated as seawater that goes in. There are issues with this, and the Environment Agency have told me that that's one of the things that they need to look at, because desalination plants are a hazard in that respect for the local fauna and flora, or whatever, SENA and whatever they put them in sea. So the diesel generators would run the plant for 3 to 4 years continuously. They'll be contribute to significant CO2, nitrogen oxides, PM10s, 2.5s. That has a problem with atmospheric ozone, which will increase as a result of the combination of the nitrogen oxides and volatile organics. So there are all sorts of potential issues for people who have any issues in terms of lung defects, COPD, asthma, etc., etc. So it's a health hazard in its own right. Now, of course, it's way down by the coast. It is quite close to Sizewell itself, so there are issues with that. But the whole environmental impact of this has not been put into the consultation. So once again, we're being asked to give opinions on a consultation when none of the supporting information is being made available. And the Environment Agency is of the same opinion on this. Then there's the second part, which is they can't actually get the desalination plant up and running for several months after the beginning because they need a space to put it on the main construction site. They need to get all of the material in there to do that, do horizontal drilling to put all of the pipes in that's necessary out to the into the shoreline. And so we're going to have a number of up to 40 deliveries today per day of water bowsers, essentially, with potable water. And most of this is for when they're building the cut-off wall of the plant, of the platform itself. It's not clear whether they need that all the time. It will build up to that. When you look at the sort of numbers that they're talking about early on, it's probably less than 10 deliveries per day, but depending on how long it takes for them to get this plant in place, 40 deliveries per day is certainly a possibility. And that on top of all of the other HGVs that will be running at that time, including AILs and everything else, this is quite a significant increase. EDF are saying it won't exceed their current limits, that they're talking about 300 HGVs per day, I think is the number. But it's, as they haven't really answered a lot of questions about the early years, and that's when this is going to be happening, in terms of what HGVs are expected to become, how much the haul road or the SLR will be able to take a lot of the lorries off the road. We don't know because they're talking about using it as a haul road. So it's not clear, and this is something that the inspectors are still waiting for. So once again, we don't have enough information to know whether this claim of no increase in the maximum number of HGVs is credible or not. So it's certainly something that we need to question. Now, in terms of getting this new pipeline in place with Northumbrian Water, there's 20 kilometres or 20 kilometres of extra pipeline and pumping station by 2026. None of this is being examined within the DCO. So this is all external to the DCO. So it's not included in any of their environmental assessments. It's not included in their CO2 inputs. And it's not part of the examination, even though the necessity for it is specifically for Sizewell C. So that's something else that we should be objecting to. And I guess lastly, 21 days for a consultation is too short. It should have been at least 28. And they're doing it in the middle of a holiday, first of which, for many people, we've been actually able to go somewhere without too many restrictions. So we need to object to that too. There is a parish and town council general letter going out. I think at last count, there was something like 16 parish and town councils signed up to that objection letter. I'm not sure what the actual numbers are today. They may have increased even further. So please do object to the length of the consultation, to the fact that there's no information, not enough information in the consultation to make an educated assessment and therefore an educated response to it. And please do feel free to say that the whole issue of the pipeline should be within the DCO application and not outside of it, where it is basically uncontrolled and not able to be properly assessed with all of the other damage that's going to be done. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm quite happy to take any questions in case anybody have any before Alison takes the next section.
I was going to just quickly share again that kind of information about how to respond. So you must send your response to EDF by the end of the 27th of August. Note that this is a consultation by EDF, so the response needs to go to EDF, and it's the usual email info@sizewellsea.co.uk. But you should definitely copy the Planning Inspectorate and Suffolk County Council, East Suffolk Council, and Therese Coffey. And the two key themes are, as Paul said, you know, your sense of outrage about the last minute nature of this attempt to resolve a really fundamental issue that they've known about for a decade, and the burden this has added to interested parties, especially, you know, the short consultation during the summer period. There is, I will screen share briefly perhaps, because on our website there is, I'll show you, you know, links to a letter that Together Against Sizewell C and Stop Sizewell C have sent to the Planning Inspectorate, which says a lot of this. And if I share briefly, I can show you. So this is the page on our website. It's called Take Part in the Planning Process. And if you scroll down, there's an updated section with the timetable and some guidance about this response. So a little bit of background and links to the letter that Northumbrian Water, trading as Essex and Suffolk Water, sent, and EDF's proposals, and a link to the letter that is on the Planning Inspectorate website from Together Against Sizewell C and Stop Sizewell C. And Pete Wilkinson, by the way, gets all the credit for writing that letter. We just said, yeah, we'll sign it. And, you know, some of the key points that you could make. And I've included the link to EDF's previous water supply strategy update that Paul referred to, where they said why they were discounting salination. And there's a few kind of key points that you might want to raise. And the email addresses of who to send it to there, and the people who you can copy everything to up here. So I'm going to stop sharing and take some questions.
There's one question. There's one question in the chat, which is where are the Bowsers coming from? And I think they're coming from Barsham, which is where eventually the pipeline will also come from. So I think they're local, but it's in the Waveney area, so it's not too distant, but it is to the north. So they'll be coming down the A12 along the B1122.
Cool. And John, I've got a question from you.
You're in mute.
Sorry. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, I was going to ask, have we any idea the size of these Bowsers? I mean, Bowsers come in different sizes. I mean, are they one of these? I mean, they can be in huge, semi-articulated things. Presumably, those are those. I mean, to get 30, only 10 Bowsers a day, given the volume that they're looking to get. I mean, have we got a capacity of the Bowsers, for instance?
Well, they're about 30 meters cubed per Bowser. I mean, if you take an articulated, so that's the largest they could use. But if you want to look at AS202, it actually shows how much water they need
it's all in there,
right up to the first 15 months. And it doesn't really, if they were doing 40 30-meter cubed Bowsers, that would certainly take them about 15 months into the development based on their water requirements that are shown in that document. And that's what I've looked at. So if it's only 6 to 9 months, then it probably won't reach 40. It will be a fair bit less than that, at least half of it. So they may be hedging their bets with the 40, just in case anything goes dramatically awry with whatever. There's plenty of things.
Do you get a feeling for when they're actually going to start this process? When are they going to start running the Bowsers? Is that going to be right from the beginning, or?
Well, no, because they have to establish tanks on site and place to store all of this stuff initially. So there's a whole bunch of things that would go on in the early months, because the main development site and the main platform where they're going to put this, well, that's where they're going to put, that's unfair. That's where they're going to put the desalination plant. So, but they're going to have to find somewhere to put it and be able to get it there. So they're going to have to do some work on the main development site before they start.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry that.
But that's, you know, you need to. They need to be much more open with their early years transport as well as their project plan for how this all works, because none of that information is there at the moment. Certainly not in the consultation.
I've asked for an outline in terms of the project plan as a sequence of stuff, because have you been able to find that anywhere?
There is an implementation plan, which I think I shared with you, John, but it's not that detailed.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Can I suggest we move on to Simon?
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Thank you. It was just a quick statement. Phosphate pollution is a big deal in agriculture. And, you know, it depends how much they're dumping it. But Paul, what you said, that will cause algae blooms if there's any phosphate going back into the sea for whatever reason.
Yeah, they need it to descale the equipment apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, if I will get in touch with the person who told me this today. He has an academic paper that he's looked at, so we'll take a look at that and make some information available as soon as we can.
I'm sure there'll be information from DEFRA as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right, and I'm sure the EA are probably well apprised of this. Simon Barlow, who's my contact there, he's on holiday at the moment. He did phone me at the beginning of last week, but I think he's back after the bank holiday, so hopefully we'll be able to have another chat about that.
Okay, thanks.
And we will get another go at this, of course, because they still have to actually request officially to the planning inspectorate to have the change put in, and then it gets another hit at the examination. So
cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Marianne.
Thank you. Because it doesn't fall within the DCO, the pipeline development, so would Essex and Suffolk Water need planning permission for that from somewhere? So would that be local, or would that count as infrastructure planning as well?
Not at the level that this is. So I would imagine they'd have to go through East Suffolk Council and probably, I don't know whether Barsham is was in now in East Suffolk. It probably is. So it would be through, because they're going to have to go across land. They're going to have to go across highways.
Yeah. So if they
would have to be involved, it's not a straightforward operation at all.
So the planning process would take some time, and I suppose there's a remote possibility that they wouldn't get it.
It's unlikely to be refused, considering it's part of the infrastructure, the water infrastructure. The one thing that is very clear is one of the worries that Northumbrian have is that the EA are about to reduce the abstraction levels in this area, because we are in dire straits as far as potable water is concerned.
Okay, I thought the water was coming even further than that, so I obviously didn't read it properly. But anyway, thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have a concern that they may look for this to be a permanent feature. I know they say in the documentation it's temporary. They say that they obviously move it off the main development site over to, I think it's Goose Hill, is it, if they need to. And the basis for that is that in the Committee on Climate Change's 6 carbon budget, there's a section in there about water usage. And they're basically saying that, well, it says fresh water could become scarcer in the future depending on the level of climate change. Our scenario suggests that water could be saved as we transition from a generation mix reliant on nuclear and fossil generation that require water for cooling. Says nonetheless, electrolyzers could increase overall demand for water. But they're basically saying if you use nuclear, you probably would need to use desalination. And I'm just sort of kind of wondering if this is EDF's sort of step-by-step approach to get a permanent desalination plant in.
I don't see how they can do that. They don't have room to put it on the site. So it may become a backup or as part of the main construction activity, but I don't see it going beyond that because there simply isn't anywhere to put it.
No, I know.
But then the car park thing.
But
Yeah, no, it's just a concern that I can see the way EDF work, but hopefully that's not the case.
yeah, I think they're hedging their bets, Chris, would be my guess, but who knows?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got John.
You're muted, John.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Right. All I want to know is, does the Sizewell crossing need to be in place before they can start putting the desalination operation there? Because my understanding is they at least need to have a portion of the platform constructed to put it there.
Don't know. As the concrete batching plant is actually up on Goose Hill, and the initial place for the desalination plant is in the main platform, I would imagine, yes, they do have to have something in place, but stringing a pipeline across is probably not a big issue. But one of the things that they first want to put in anyway, we know this is something they need to put in very quickly, is the triple SI crossing. So, you know, again, that comes back to the very little detail we have on the project plan at that sort of level. But
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, my unmute didn't work. Josie, I hope you're going to say something about your friend who looked at the CO2.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Alison. So just 3 points. One is, as Alison mentioned, I had a former work colleague who's an energy specialist, was willing to do some calculations for me using the information, albeit incomplete, in the consultation document. So he has calculated very conservatively that each day of running a desalination plant on diesel creates 6 tons of CO2. And I have shared this very academic paper with Alison. Now, I will not give this to EDF, obviously, because this is actually something I hope we will be giving to the planning inspectorate. So that's actually my first question to Paul and Alison on this. My reading of the letter that the planning inspectorate sent to EDF is it appeared quite angry about this addition. And so what I actually wanted to ask is, I mean, to me, if you were going to put a desalination plant under normal conditions, this would be a big hoo-ha, right? This would be a huge planning application and would have a massive process around it. So I guess my question number 1 is, what are the opportunities for us to help the planning inspectorate decide that this is not a minor change to an existing DCO, but rather a very big piece of new infrastructure, given its enormous impact on so many things, I mean, which Paul's already described, and Paul didn't even talk about the impact. I just did a little research also online. It's got dreadful impact on marine life in sucking these things in, right? And we've already had that discussion at the issue specific hearing. So, you know, my feeling on this is that I will be not only signing the letter, but sending an outraged response of objection to EDF. But my guess is that the real story here is what happens with the planning inspectorate. So I guess it's part of the question. And secondly, I saw a very scary chat that came up from John Richmond saying that our lovely MP seems to think putting a desal plant here is a good idea. So I just wanted to ask about that statement. Thank you.
I read that on her website. She just had released a statement about in answer to the consultation. It's on there.
Is she mad?
Yes,
or is she bought?
Yes, she is mad. You don't realise she's mad. Yes, certifiably.
But I mean, no one would say that. A desal plant, that like
said we
it's
should
the
consider it.
craziest thing that you ever would build.
Yeah.
It's
So we consider
huge.
whether it would be a positive effect to the wider community for the longer term or something like that. She said it was some really washed statement, but it was definitely in sort of encouraging it to be thought of as something we could use for the community, or whatever
Oh
we're
my
going to use that for.
God. No one builds desal unless
No,
you're
it's
Saudi Arabia with oil.
No,
Agreed.
well, clearly, yeah, clearly this is
Sorry,
something
it's
we need to-
amazing. We
Well-
need to do something about her then.
Yeah, and this is why,
Been
you know,
trying.
the all correspondence needs to be copied to her. I mean, so Josie's absolutely right. You know, how the planning inspectorate reacts is really key to this. And we, you know, strongly encourage you to copy your correspondence to EDF, which should be suitably outraged about the nature and scale and lateness of this proposal to them. I want to just go back to the parish council's letter, because we've got about 20 parish councils signed up so far. And I think it actually really aptly illustrates the difficulty of doing something in the middle of August when everybody's away, that those numbers aren't higher. And EDF, you know, to launch a basically 3-week consultation during August is, you know, is totally unacceptable. But I think on this call, we have representatives from Darsham, Saxmundham, Milesford, Wickham Market and Woodbridge, and none of your councils have signed yet. So if there's anything that you can do, I think Yoxford have signed, if there's anything you can do to get that agreement through, you know, through an email decision, you know, by even Friday lunchtime, you know, we would be able to send a letter with, you know, closer to 30 parish councils, and that letter is going to the planning inspectorate. It's not going to EDF, because we think that's the primary audience.
Yeah, I mean, and the way this thing works is, so after EDF do their consultation, if that's what you want to call it, they then have to formally apply to the planning inspectorate to have it accepted as a change. So there is an opportunity before they accept it as a change to actually also have another go at the planning inspectorate. So there's no reason why you should necessarily let EDF know at this time. You can wait until that formal application has been submitted before you take that. Are we, you know,
Yeah, and
anything that ambushes EDF is good news.
And indeed, the issue-specific hearing planned for the 14th of September does include water supply.
Yeah.
So it's on flood risk, groundwater, surface
Water supply, potable and non-potable
Yeah,
water.
I mean,
Compliance with the Water Framework Directive as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that clearly the Northumbrian Water are very worried about, because they think the EA is about to clamp down on all abstraction.
Yeah. I'm going to suggest we move on, but if anybody has additional suggestions of what people could be saying in their response, thank you very much, Michael. I've just got a permission to add Darsham to the letter. That's great. And he is also pointing out that Therese Coffey doesn't open messages where she is on the CC line. So
Correct.
You need to make a point of emailing her separate. Thank you very much for that reminder. We've got about 25 minutes left. And one of the things that we thought it would be useful to do is just to give you a general update on how the DCO is going so far. So in the last month, the examining authority has submitted a large number of additional written questions. These are mostly for the applicant again, and it's notable that quite a few of those are because they didn't feel they had an adequate reply to the first set of written questions. So if you've got time, those are quite interesting to look at. And, you know, it's gratifying to see that some are based on evidence that, you know, you have provided. So that's helpful. There were also a couple of days of compulsory acquisition hearings last week. Two of the sort of interesting things that emerged from that was that EDF was asked about costings, whether they had a new figure that is not 20 billion. They said that work was ongoing and they didn't have a new figure yet, but you know, they hoped they would by the end of the DCO examination. They were adamant that they believed a decision would be made on the regulated asset-based funding model within the time frame of the examination. Now, to my mind, that means by mid-October, which, considering Parliament is in recess and doesn't properly return till the 18th of October, is, you know, quite a startling claim. And they couldn't answer questions about what impact it would have on the time frame of the project if this didn't happen, or what funding alternatives there were, or different models there might be, or whether anyone had agreed to underwrite the cost, or why they are apparently discussing additional funding with the government up to the date of their final investment decision, which hopefully you've seen in our emails. The latest financial report suggested that this might now be at the end of next year or early 2023, whereas it previously was mid 2022. Additionally, there was a discussion where the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority in Magnox said that they were very unhappy about a couple of plots of land that are within the Sizewell A nuclear site licence that Sizewell C needs, or more properly, Sizewell B facilities were planned to be relocated onto this land in order to make space for Sizewell C. And these plots are included in the list of potential compulsory acquisition. So the NDA and Magnox want this land removed from the compulsory acquisition list. And it was really telling to hear Hereward Philpott, EDF's QC, describing how this land was needed in order for space to be made for Sizewell C. And we've sent further evidence based on a bit of a spat at the community forum, where questions about Coronation Wood were ruled out of order as being beyond the scope of that community forum. As examples of where we feel the applicant's been pretty economical with the truth. There are some more issue-specific hearings later this week. Paul, would you like to say something about those?
Yeah, so we have noise and vibration coming up on Tuesday. There is actually an open floor hearing on Tuesday, at which the first three hearings look the first three speakers look quite interesting anyway. But yes, the first issue specific hearing on Wednesday is noise and vibration and other impacts of that nature. Something which was actually deferred from issue specific hearing 2. There will be, and I think there's going to be quite a lot of interesting opposition to that, in particular from the landowners around the Sizewell Link Road, where there are significant counter arguments in terms of noise and vibration studies that have been done by third parties on their behalf. So that's one good thing. On Thursday, we've got policy and need, and we have a number of academics and other speakers lined up, specialists in this area, who are going to help us respond to the agenda items in that. So that's quite an interesting session, where we're obviously going to be talking about EN6 and EN1 amongst other things, but a whole bunch of other associated subjects: the impact of government policy, Paris Climate Agreement, Committee for Climate Change, the various statements by people like the electricity supply operator and National Grid, which run counter to the need for any further new nuclear power stations. So there's going to be quite an interesting discussion on Thursday. And then lastly, on Friday, we have another biodiversity and habitat regulation assessment session, looking at European marsh harrier mitigation and various other aspects. So that's the final 3 days for this week. Then, as Alison said, we have another set of 4 days in September. The first one is on flood risk, groundwater, surface water, supply of potable and non-potable water, and a coastal processes update. We'll talk a little bit more about coastal processes and coastal defence a bit later on. Then on the Wednesday, community amenity and recreational impacts, adverse effects on human health, living conditions, etc. Coastal path, public rights of way, AONB. Then there's another one on landscape and historic heritage, a bunch of things that were actually deferred from issue specific hearing 5. And we'll come back to look at Sizewell Link Road, Southern Park and Ride, Two Villages Bypass. So a whole bunch of things there. And then the last one again is on the DCO and Code of Construction Practice and Deed of Obligation. So that's the one back on the proposed draft DCO and all the associated documents. That's on the 17th of September. And then in theory, it's all over, sort of, but we shall wait and see. I think that was it, Ali. Oh, the only thing to remind you is we have another deadline coming up, deadline 7 on the 3rd of September. There may be some, if any of you have been involved in statements of common ground, there's an opportunity to update those. There are expected any, if you want to look at the examining authorities questions 2, which Alison referred to earlier, most of which are for the applicant, but not all. There are a number of other things in there. Or if you just want to make comment on some of the things that the applicant has been asked, you can certainly do that as well. And those are all due on, well, a week on Friday, effectively. So please do have a look at that. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So in theory, as Paul points out, the examination is scheduled to end in the middle of October. We were interested to see EDF's latest financial report talking about a Secretary of State decision being due mid-2022, whereas the previous 6-monthly report said April 2022. And we're not sure whether that suggests that EDF at least are expecting some delay, or maybe they've been given maybe they knew about the little hiccup with the water at the point where they wrote that report. But anyway, you know, we're not sure when we'll find out. We had a couple more things that we wanted to say to you. But before we do, are there any questions more broadly about how the DCO is going and deadlines and hearings and what have you? I've got Josie's hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Thanks, Paul. Could you just explain these next set of issue-specific hearings? Are they adding to, is it just that the planning inspectorate is going to pick up some of the issues that they didn't finish in the other ones, or are there rules about this has to be new information or something like that? Your advice on that would be very helpful, so we know how, if we should try to participate. Thanks.
It's a mixture, Josie. Some of it is, I think what happens as you move through this process, and for the inspectorate, is they realize there are subjects which get touched upon, but then they realize actually they're bigger than they allowed and they want to hear more about it. There are obviously some things which were deliberately postponed because they were running out of time or whatever, or wanted to give it more, like the noise and vibration, which was originally in the transport section. They realized that that's far too big a subject to carry off, so they're going to give a whole day to it. So it's a mixture. And the ones that are coming up right at the end, some of them are things that they needed to look at anyway, but they just haven't scheduled. Things like the community and amenity stuff, and other things that are coming up, you know, like water. So yeah, it's a mixture, and the planning inspectorate can do this. I mean, they will, if they think they haven't exercised the subject sufficiently, or they see there's a subject that they haven't really questioned at all, they'll put in another issue-specific hearing. And if at the end of this, or in the next month or so, they decide there are still things that haven't been aired, then they may go back to the Secretary of State and say, we need more time.
So should we all pile in again, as we did?
You need to look
in
at
the first set?
You need to look at the agendas as they come out. So you shouldn't be repeating things that you've said before.
Right.
I mean, that's very clear. I know Perrywood Philpott does it all of the time. And it's always a good idea to remind him that you already said that. And I'm not going to respond to you because you already said that. But, you know, it should be new information or some emphasis on something that hasn't really been brought out. That's really what you should do. If you're going to play by the game, that's the way to do it. And I think one of the things that it is good for us to do is make sure we play the game. Because the more EDF are seeing to be repetitive and not playing the game, the more that the inspectors will get fed up with them. And I think there's a bit of that going on.
Cool. I'm going to go to John.
Two things. One is, last time we spoke, Alison, I was concerned that I hadn't had the link from the inspectorates to be able to join these hearings. Have they come through yet? You said you hadn't.
The only link that's been shared is for people speaking at the open floor hearing tomorrow. So
Okay.
Normally they send them the night before. So.
Okay, that's fine. That's reassuring. And the other thing I was going to ask is that very helpful document. And my attention missed. You mentioned early on about this very helpful document to help us responding on the water. Can you remind me of the link to that?
Yes, if you just go to our website, stopsizewellsea.org, and look for a menu item called Take Part in the Planning Process. If you click on that, you have to scroll down a little way, but it's all there.
Okay, that's brilliant.
And if there's anything missing, please don't hesitate to tell me, people, so that I can make that page as useful as possible.
And Paul, likewise, the business about getting in to look at the stuff for deadline 7. Is that on there? That link is on there as well, is it? Or is it through pins deadline 7-ish?
Yes. So there on that page there is a link to the examination timetable, and that tells you what's due.
That then takes you in, and that'll give us the questions that they're asking. Okay, thanks so much. I'm sorry to be a nuisance.
No, not at all. Nigel.
I just wanted to say that the whole planning inquiry towards the sort of later stages now is just so much of a burden. We've got councillors who are away on holiday. Our town clerk's been away on holiday once and is away on holiday for a second time now. So trying to keep up with it is just absolutely, you know, it's so frustrating. And it's not as if we don't have other things to do. And I just cannot understand how the planning inspectors can run it through the holiday season. It's just intolerable.
No, well, we're with you, Nigel, and sending a big virtual hug because we totally empathise with what you're saying. And I think it's really, really worth making that point in your response to EDF, which you're going to copy to the planning inspectorate, that August, you know, we've had 18 months of lockdown and, you know, we're being expected to respond to this crap.
I think it's worth saying that they do this with monotonous regularity. I mean, normally if it's not August holidays, it's Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be pure incompetence, and the more one sees of them, it could well be that. But on the other hand, it could be Machiavellian deviousness. Yes.
Well, I always say, if you want to design a process to paralyze a campaigning organization, then an NSIP DCO fits the bill perfectly. So we just have to try and find a way to stay sane. Unless there's any other questions, I'm going to suggest we finish on a more positive note, because there's lots of good stuff happening as well. So are there any more questions?
Can I ask a very simple question, Alison?
Is that Ivor?
Can you hear me? Yes, Ivor. I've responded to the EDF earlier on, and then after reading Pete Wilkinson's excellent letter in the East Anglian, I realised I'd only used about a third of the information. So I responded again, but I'm wondering now, would it be seen as over the top, or would it be ignored if I now did a complete email and sent to them and copied to everybody as you've suggested? Would that be ignored, or would that be worth me doing?
No, go for it, and just put something at the top which says, the more I read about this, the more I have to say about it. You know, and that's perfectly reasonable.
That's exactly what I said on my second one. Yes.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Cool. Well, I just want to finish with, some positive stuff, which is that we have seen some more interest from the national press in Sizewell C and in the regulated asset base model particularly in recent weeks. So the Financial Times and the Telegraph especially have been writing about this issue. Tomorrow, fingers crossed, there should be an email going out to all 85,000 people who signed the Sum of Us petition against the regulated asset base, asking everyone to write to their pension providers. So, that could be a really sort of big boost to our campaign. I mean, obviously not all 85,000 people would do it, but if even a small proportion would do it, that would lend a lot of weight to the sort of efforts to get this message to potential funders. So lots else going on. I want to say thank you to everybody who's been putting up boards. We're on our 6th reprint now, and we're prepared to just keep on going as long as people keep asking. And you can see that they're sort of mushrooming. Walberswick has been mobilising. Walberswick has been talking to Blytheborough, and Blytheborough are mobilising. So all of you who are here from local communities, whether you're on the parish council or not, I just want to say that there's nothing to stop you starting a mini revolution in your community and talking to your friends and neighbours and encouraging them to get more boards out, because that is what is happening in these other villages. It's not a parish council initiative. Wonderful parish councils, so those places have, it's just, neighbours getting together and saying this would be a good idea. I hope you've seen that Adnams have produced wonderful beer mats for their pubs. If you go into an Adnams pub and you don't see these beer mats, then do let us know, because then we can give Adnams in Southwold a bit of a shove and say, oi, you ought to be sending them out to such and such. We've still got face masks, car stickers. We've got leaflets that we would like to find a home for. So if there are any kind of farm shops or local businesses that you think would take them, then please let us know. So the point of having this stuff is not for it to sit cluttering up our front rooms, it's to get it out there. So please, 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 and thank you, Ivor, for your magnificent take of face masks a couple of days ago. I'm looking forward to seeing those in supermarkets soon. The really big thing is to get you all to put the 19th of September in your diaries. Now, ever since we went on the accompanied site inspections, those of us that saw the layout of the sea defences were absolutely shocked about the scale and the extent of them. And at that time, that's when this idea of doing some kind of mass gathering on the beach to illustrate that really kind of started to develop. So this is being organised by ourselves and Together Against Sizewell C. It's going to be on the morning of Sunday, the 19th of September, starting promptly at 10 a.m. And it will take a maximum of about 2 hours, we think. It will involve a bit of walking up the beach to the Sizewell C site. But if there's anybody who desperately wants to take part and for whom that distance is just impossible, please let us know, because we just had an email from Sizewell B and the police saying that they wouldn't object to us taking a couple of vehicles up the beach. So we might be able to ferry people who wouldn't otherwise be able to walk. On our website, all the information that you need is available. So it's under the Take Action tab. It's called Save Sizewell Beach, or you can go directly stopsizewellc.org/SOS to have a look. There's no booking system as such, but we want you to tell and bring, excuse me, all your friends and family, because it's going to be a fun, peaceful day out that is suitable for everyone. We'll have permission for everything we do from the police. There's no reason that anybody should feel anxious about doing something. We're not breaking any laws. It's a peaceful protest that we will film from the air with a drone, and we hope that certainly the regional television and news media will be very interested in. So please, please, please put that in your diary. I want to see as many of you as possible, along with as many friends and family as possible. And Sue, before the final thing I wanted to do was give you a sneak preview of our new animated film, which we've just taken delivery of. But before I do, I was just going to say that Sue Maurice, who's on the call, do you want to just introduce yourself, Sue? Because she's our storekeeper and she's got all the boards and the masks and posters and leaflets and everything like that. So she's the person who can help you out. Where are you?
See us? Can you see me?
I'm trying to find you. Sorry.
Well, you don't need to see us because it's been amazing how many people have wanted the boards, and I've got them, and I'm here until the 10th of September. So if anybody wants the board, to save Alison having to screen all of the calls, you can email me directly, and the email is Chris, and that's lowercase chris.maurice1@btinternet.com, and I'll put the boards ready because Alan helps and he's taking over when I'm on holiday, then I'll send you a message back and you just come and pick them up from outside my house. But it's been absolutely amazing, and so thank you all very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sue.
And Sue, you should just explain how to spell your name.
Oh, of course. M-O-R-R-I-C-E. I'm a Scottish one, but I'm not really.
Don't sound very Scottish.
No, I'm not.
Right, so this video that I'm about to show you, we'll put it online in the next couple of days, and it'll be on our social media. And this video, he would absolutely hate me to say this, has been inspired by Nick Scarr from Aldeburgh, who has done amazing work kind of looking into the whole coastal geomorphology issues. And we came up with the idea of having an animated video to explain some of these issues and concerns. So I'm going to quickly show it to you now.
Suffolk's fragile coastline has been eroding for the last 8,000 years. 800 years ago, Dunwich was one of the largest towns in England. Since then, much of it has been washed into the sea. Just 4 miles away, EDF wants to build 2 nuclear reactors at Sizewell, costing at least £20 billion. But the plans for Sizewell C are built on sand. EDF says the site is safe and offshore banks cut the size and eroding power of the waves. But these banks are constantly changing and could shrink even in the next decade, making Sizewell more vulnerable to erosion. EDF must keep the site safe for at least 170 years to store nearly 4,000 tons of radioactive waste. Climate change and rising sea levels only add more uncertainty. The bigger the waves, the faster the coast erodes, and the more likely the site would flood. EDF plans to build sea defences the height of 3 double-decker buses, and it's planned that for as long as Sizewell C would stand, these defences would keep growing. But no modelling of sea levels looks far enough ahead to predict how high, and not even EDF can be sure what this chaos coast will look like in the future. Take action to stop Sizewell C before it's too late.
Could you hear that?
Very good.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I'm going to send out links to that in due course, Alison.
Yeah, we certainly will. Thank you very much. Michael, I see that you were wanting information about, was that when you said put that on the website, were you meaning the 19th of September event? Michael?
Sorry, no, I meant about the board and the face masks and the other items.
Oh, okay, Cool. Yes, we can certainly do that. We can certainly make sure that that's
Also, if your link can be put on the site for that new video, because we've now installed a projector and screen into the village hall.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
yes, that'd be ideal.
That's fantastic. It's a couple of young guys from UEA who just graduated and they've set up a new business who did it. And it took quite a long time, but it was great fun. And I think you'll agree they've done a great job.
Brilliant. Good.
Cool. All right. Any questions before we go? Oh, John.
Yep, Alison, just you mentioned national press. I was pleased to see that in the Times letters on Wednesday, the 18th of August, there was a letter specifically about Sizewell C and the regulated asset base from a lady in Hitchin in Hertfordshire.
Well, she's actually partly in Dunwich as well.
Is she? Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm just so you know about it already.
Yeah.
It's under the height, but it was good to see that. Thank you.
Cool. Anything else anybody would like to share? Just wanted to say thank you so much. Robin, Nigel, if you could do your best with your respective councils, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much to Darsham and Malsford, who in the course of this call have agreed to sign the letter, and Ivor, thank you for your offer to Chase Westleton, because it would be great to get their signature as well. Arthur, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, maybe Sue could put her email address in the chat so we can all just copy it if you want to.
Yeah.
No, there won't be any errors in transcription then.
Good suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny.
Ali, do Yoxford, not Yoxford, Peas and Hollow Sibton ever reply in these council letters to sign?
They do sometimes, but not always. Do you want me to just let me just tell you, everybody, who's signed so far? So Aldringham, Barsham, of course, and Shipmeadow, Bredfield, Campsie Ash, Dunwich Parish Meeting, Farnham with Stratford St Andrew, Kelsale, Noddeshaw, Leiston, Levington and Stratton Hall, Little Beelings, Pettistry, Rendon, Sutton, Ubbiston, Walberswick, thank you, Josie, Westerfield, and Yoxford. And Featherton Eastbridge have signed, obviously. Middleton, I'm sure we'll get. Snape, I'm sure we'll get. And I think Aldborough are discussing it tonight. So, you know, that will hopefully get us closer to 30.
Have the parish council seen this letter? Alison, has it gone out to them? Do they know the content?
Oh, yes. Yes,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it went out beginning of last week, and the deadline is, well, it's sort of, oh, Fran, thank you. Can we add Sudbourne? Bill, rather. Thank you very much indeed.
They don't normally have a parish council in August, do they?
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, it is feasible to get these things agreed by email. Obviously, you know, people prefer and tend to do it in a meeting, but it's not essential. Sue's email is now in the chat, and she's away for a couple of weeks, but we'll make sure that somebody can cover that. Bill or Fran, not sure which of you.
I just think is we haven't had anything through from our parish clerk. Obviously, I knew about this from other sources. So I have contacted other local parishes who I know she's also clerk for. I don't know if she's away or what the situation is, but Sudbourne will certainly sign, but I'm encouraging others to do as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Bill. Yeah, it's tricky because if we don't go through the clerks, that's, you know, that's the appropriate line of communication, but if they are away, we're stuck. Yeah, Victoria, is that Victoria's iPad? Is that Victoria Hambley?
Yes, it is.
Hi, so have you
Hi.
heard that we can add Darsham, Malsford and Sudbourne to the letter?
Great, I've got that. Thanks.
Robin?
Reason I've put my hand up is I haven't seen it come through on our emails, council emails, so I'm a bit surprised at the moment. You couldn't send it again, could you, just in case?
Yeah, we can. So Have you got Robin's email, Victoria? Would you like me to do that?
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Or just send me the email.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And hopefully, yeah, Nigel said he would chase Saxmundham, so we might get a reply from them too.
Great.
Cool. All right. Well, unless there's anything else, I suggest we close. I want to thank everybody for coming once again, and you know, hopefully the EDF will get lots of responses at the end of this week.
Thank you, Alison.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Sally.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
So good.
Brilliant.
Well done, Sue.
No, but I think it's going really well. So well done, you.
I couldn't find you because you're so dark.
I know, I had forgotten it's gone dark, but I look better in the dark.
You're gorgeous. You look gorgeous.
Anyway, but I'm